What if Tom Holland's Spider-Man made a cameo in Venom, revealing that the two characters exist in the same universe? Or what if Venom showed up in The Amazing Spider-Man 3 to take on Andrew Garfield? And what about Topher Grace? What if he had gotten his own Venom spin-off film? Believe it or not, all of these almost happened, including Dolph Lundgren almost starring in a Venom film in the late 90s, as Venom's journey to the big screen has been as twisted and unpredictable as the symbiote itself. So let's dive in and explore the behind-the-scenes chaos that led to these projects being scrapped, and also take a look at what could have been Venom. Before we dive in, a huge shout out to this video's paid partner, BetterHelp. BetterHelp is a fully online therapy platform that connects you with credentialed therapists, providing personalized counseling and support through message, chat, phone, or video, all from the comfort of your own space. Therapy isn't just for mental health issues like depression or anxiety. Therapy is a powerful tool for personal growth and self-care, offering a judgment-free environment to talk about anything on your mind, whether it's stress, relationships, or just feeling overwhelmed. A credentialed therapist can help you see things from new perspectives, teach techniques to manage emotions, and guide you towards positive changes. Plus, with options like online therapy, it's more accessible and affordable than ever. Getting started with BetterHelp is simple and convenient. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, and you'll be matched with a credentialed therapist in as little as a few days. However, if your first therapist doesn't feel like the right match, no worries. You can easily switch to another until you find someone you truly connect with. BetterHelp's therapists are highly qualified, and the platform's friendly customer support team is available to assist with any questions you may have. Whether you prefer to communicate through message, chat, phone, or video, you can connect with your therapist in the way that's most comfortable for you. You can also message your therapist anywhere, anytime in the app, and schedule live sessions at your convenience on any mobile device or computer. So if you're struggling and think you'd benefit from a therapy session, click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/bulletsandblockbusters and get 10% off your first month of therapy. The seed for Venom was planted when Spider-Man fan Randy Schueller pitched a concept for a black stealth suit for Peter Parker. Schueller also pitched Reed Richards as the one who would make the new suit for Spidey using the same unstable molecules that the Fantastic Four costumes are made of. A few months later, Schueller got a letter from Marvel's editor-in-chief, Jim Shooter, expressing interest in the idea and offering to buy it for $220. From here, the new suit would swap red for white and be reimagined as an alien symbiote. However, writer David Goyer wanted to create a villain that could evade Spider-Man's spider sense, and proposed an idea where the symbiote suit would absorb Peter's genetic material, allowing it to evade his spider sense after bonding with a new host, Eddie Brock. Ultimately, what started out as a replacement costume for Spider-Man turned into one of the web-slinger's most popular villains, which is why it wasn't long before talk turned towards bringing the character to the big screen. Long before the MCU, Marvel used to sell the film rights to many of their characters to various other studios. One of these studios included New Line Cinema, who in the mid-90s acquired the rights to Blade, Iron Man, and Venom. However, the film rights to Spider-Man at the time were owned by another studio, forcing New Line to develop an origin story that didn't include Peter Parker. To write it, they hired Blade screenwriter David Goyer, and the story would have opened in the past, introducing us to two orphans, Cletus Cassidy and Eddie Brock, both institutionalized at a psychiatric hospital for emotionally disturbed youth. To escape, Cassidy sets fire to the hospital, which kills several people, earning him the nickname Carnage. In the years that follow, Cassidy becomes a serial killer, while Brock takes a job as a journalist, where he finds fame writing about Cassidy's murders in a column he calls Venom. Eventually, Cassidy tries to kill Brock out of jealousy over Brock's growing popularity, but Brock is used as unwitting bait by the authorities to catch Cassidy, who is sentenced to death. Meanwhile, on the symbiote homeworld, Venom, referred to as the Other, is on the run from red symbiotes known as Blood Hunters, before Venom manages to escape in a spacecraft, with one of the Blood Hunters pursuing him in another. Back on Earth, Brock is fired by the sleazy tabloid he works for, the Daily Weekly, for trying to write real stories and not salacious trash. Afterwards, the symbiote spacecraft crashes next to him. When Brock looks inside the spacecraft, the symbiote bonds with him, transforming him into Venom. He then embarks on a violent rampage, seeking revenge on those who have wronged him, including his former boss. After Brock passes out, he has a dream about Cassidy also bonding with a symbiote. When he wakes up, he frantically calls the prison psychiatrist, Dr. Rachel Kafka, to warn her, but to no avail, as the Blood Hunter's ship lands on the roof of the prison, just as Cassidy is about to be executed. The Blood Hunter then slithers through the prison's wiring and into the execution chamber, ultimately bonding with Cassidy and transforming him into Carnage. Carnage then begins to hunt down the former staff of the psychiatric hospital where he was admitted to as a child, and also goes after Dr. Kafka, but Venom is able to intervene and save her. Carnage then bursts into a news studio and goes live on TV, declaring war on the city's police force and urging viewers to attack their irritating neighbors or their bosses bosses who they despise. This sparks a riot led by Cassidy's followers, known as the Sons of Carnage. Later, Brock's symbiote reveals to Brock and Dr. Kafka that he was an outcast on his homeworld for wanting to share his host, whereas the red symbiotes only allow symbiotes to feed on their hosts. Sharing is a crime punishable by death, which forced him to flee. A government agency known as the Vault then shows up and stuns Brock with a phosphor grenade, separating him from the symbiote as both are captured. The Vault tells Dr. Kafka that they intend to weaponize the symbiote and create super soldiers, before offering her a position as the counselor to the soldiers. But she refuses, so they lock her up. After being separated from the symbiote, Brock goes into severe shock and is rushed to the hospital, while the Vault scientists run experiments on the symbiote. Eventually, it escapes and bonds with Dr. Kafka, turning her into She-Venom, and together they rescue Brock from the hospital. Afterwards, the two share a kiss as the symbiote transfers from Kafka back to Brock, as they deduce that Carnage has returned to the hospital he burnt down from their childhood. The symbiote then tells them that the red symbiote is feeding on Cassidy, and once he's completely devoured, the hive mate will spore, creating more red symbiotes ready to bond with the Sons of Carnage, wreaking havoc across the city. Venom ambushes Carnage at the old psychiatric hospital as the two engage in a brutal fight. As Carnage starts gaining the upper hand, they're able to separate the red symbiote from Cassidy using an air horn. The Venom symbiote also detaches from Brock to attack the red symbiote, leading to a violent clash between the two. Reluctantly, Brock throws a phosphor grenade he stole from the Vault at the battling symbiotes. Cassidy, desperate to reunite with his symbiote, dives into the explosion, just like Topher Grace's Venom in Spider-Man 3, which kills him and both symbiotes. The film ends with Brock and Kafka together, as Brock mentions how he thinks he can still feel the symbiote. After Kafka asks him if they're going to be happy together, Eddie transforms into Venom and says, "Yes, we are." So why wasn't the film made? While Dolph Lundgren was rumored to star in the film as Eddie Brock, the film ultimately would never be greenlit, as the rights to the character would then move to Sony Pictures, along with those for Spider-Man, as Venom would appear in Sony's Spider-Man 3 with Topher Grace taking on the role of Eddie Brock. Years later, David Goyer would remark that he got roped into writing a pretty crappy Venom Carnage script for New Line. It's also worth noting that while visual effects were making strides in the late 90s, the technology wasn't advanced enough to convincingly bring Venom and Carnage to life with CGI. A prime example is the VFX in Blade, another New Line film written by Goyer, which gives us a glimpse of what the VFX in Venom may have looked like. Given the limitations at the time and New Line's budget, the characters probably would have been portrayed with practical costumes like in Spawn. After Spider-Man 3, Sony began developing a solo film for Topher Grace's Venom that would have taken place shortly after the battle between Spider-Man and Venom, as the symbiote reassembles itself, similar to the iconic Sandman scene, bringing back Eddie Brock. Eddie, now living under the radar, meets a waitress named Honey, who falls for him after he stops a biker gang from robbing a diner that she works at. The two then move to San Francisco, embarking on a crime-fighting spree while documenting their adventures, as their relationship takes on a Bonnie and Clyde / natural-born killers vibe. Carnage would have been the main villain, with Cletus Cassidy reimagined as a failed opera singer. After being imprisoned for a string of murders, Cassidy requests that Brock write his biography, after Brock gains fame for writing a biography on Venom. Similar to Let There Be Carnage, when Brock visits Cassidy in jail, Cassidy bites him, absorbing part of the symbiote. So why wasn't the movie made? Sony was allegedly concerned that Topher Grace wasn't a big enough star to carry a tentpole picture like Venom, and once Sony decided to reboot the Spider-Man franchise, that meant scrapping any sort of Topher Grace-led version of Venom anyway. After Marvel showed the world how wildly successful a cinematic universe could be, Sony tried to follow suit by launching their own Spider-Man universe. However, plans for this universe continuously changed. For example, the seeds were planted for a Sinister Six two-parter in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and at one point, one of the chambers in the post-credit scene would have featured the symbiote. Ultimately, this shot was removed because Sony decided against including Venom in the Sinister Six in order to give him his own standalone film, or possibly introduce him in The Amazing Spider-Man 3. Again, their plans continuously changed, and they had no shortage of wild ideas, like bringing Gwen Stacy back to life in Amazing Spider-Man 3 via a serum Peter would make from the symbiote, which would turn her into Carnage. There were also discussions about making Flash Thompson Venom instead, inspired by the Agent Venom storyline. Even Josh Trank was brought in to pitch his take on a Venom film following his breakout hit Chronicle, and he pitched an R-rated version of Venom in the vein of Jim Carrey's The Mask. However, Sony hated it, and Trank went to Fox to reboot Fantastic Four instead. Eventually, Sony moved forward with a Venom and Carnage standalone film, but the entire project and cinematic universe was shelved after The Amazing Spider-Man 2 underperformed at the box office. After Sony and Marvel struck a deal allowing Spider-Man to join the MCU, producer Amy Pascal revealed that Sony spin-off films, including Venom, would exist in the same universe as Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And while Sony finally moved ahead producing a Venom standalone film starring Tom Hardy, they didn't want to tie Venom's origins to Spider-Man. That said, multiple sources allege that Tom Holland either filmed a cameo as Peter Parker for Venom or was set to, but Marvel requested the scene be removed as they didn't want Peter Parker to exist in the same universe, eventually deciding to transport Venom into the MCU at the end of Let There Be Carnage, which sees Brock unknowingly leave behind a piece of the symbiote before being transported back to his universe at the end of No Way Home. However, early plans for No Way Home had Venom showing up for the final fight at the Statue of Liberty, with concept art even created for Black Suit Spider-Man, but it was decided to save that for a future film. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Bullets and Blockbusters for more great content.